What is going
Go
what is
ahead.
going on, everybody? You're watching the Monday Night Football preview. You're with Justin Henry, Ryan Williams, man. Ryan, we got an exciting slate tonight. Divisional game, NFC West, Arizona Cardinals and Los Angeles Rams, man. Should be a fun one. But before we get into it, make sure you guys are following along on FanDuel. We're on the FanDuel YouTube channel. Obviously, subscribe to FanDuel. Follow on all social media platforms. Ryan, talk about the slate tonight, man, because we got this exciting NFC West preview coming up.
Yeah, man, this is going to be an interesting one, man. Playoff implications going on here with the Rams and Cardinals. And we already got breaking news leading into the slate, man. Justin, it wouldn't be a slate if we didn't have some breaking news that's going to hold it down, man. This Omicron or whatever variant it is of
Man,
COVID, man, they ain't letting anybody get past.
bro, not letting anything get past. Obviously, Jalen Ramsey, Tyler Higbee have been announced out for the game tonight. They will not be playing. Obviously, this is a huge blow for this Rams team who is already suffering from a couple injuries. Darrell Henderson is out for. Talk a little bit about this impact for the loss on this on the defensive side.
Yeah, no. So the defensive side is going to be interesting there because Jalen Ramsey being out, we expect him to shadow DeAndre Hopkins usually, or at least be able to contain him, so to speak. And without him being around now, you got to think that D Hop's going to be able to get loose. I was looking kind of at fading DeAndre Hopkins in the single game slate because I want to load up on the Rams side of the ball just because of the narrow distribution of targets. But now you're talking about, man, D Hop's in play. Christian Kirk could get loose against this defense now. We see what Rondell Moore could do as well too, and AJ Green. So this does make me like the passing attack for the Rams just a little bit more. And then we also, with Higbee being out, we got to think about the Rams running attack and what that's going to look like, because I think they're also missing some key pieces on the offensive line as well. So it kind of just, what we thought this morning, Justin, and now what we think going into this slate kind of just flipped it on its head with this news.
Yeah, and I'm excited for this Arizona Cardinals side of the ball as well because obviously D Hop, Kyler Murray came back last week. We saw them in full motion all the way back. K1 is here, and so if we're getting these guys up to speed, also Chase Edmonds coming back for this team. I see a lot of offensive fireworks, and just having Jalen Ramsey not be a part of that with his ability to be the X factor, it's pretty concerning. So let's get into the slate, man. Obviously, there's a lot going on here. The line hasn't moved very much, to be honest, even with the news that Tyler Higbee and Jalen Ramsey are out. Let's kind of go over this point spread initially. At first, I was leaning, I was obviously leaning on the Cardinals, but to me, it just seems like there's nothing's changed. Like I'm going all in on the Cardinals today.
Yeah, man. I mean, they're at home. We know that they've kind of been, one of the best teams on the road, and now they're at home as well too, where they kind of actually have struggled a little bit. But the Rams, the Rams got to come out here and show us something, right, Justin? Because
Right.
they have kind of reeled the past couple of weeks, and this was a team that kind of had a lot of things on lock. I mean, Cooper Kupp was looking to be Offensive Player of the Year, which he still is kind of in that conversation, depending on how him and Jonathan Taylor finish. And then we were looking at Stafford kind of being MVP, and that's kind of been flipped. Tom Brady's still doing it at 40 something, whatever he is. This dude's the GOAT. He's not reeling down. So the Rams side of things with +3 here, it will be interesting. And I think the line will move closer to lock, Justin. I do
Feels like it.
have a feeling that it'll kind of, at least we'll get the hook in there at 3.5, maybe even 4, depending on how you view Ramsey there. I mean, Higbee's not going to move it that much, but
Right.
Ramsey should count for at least the hook, if not a point. So I'd be waiting to take the points there. I mean, Arizona -3, I'd kind of get on that, but the Rams, if they get to 3.5 or 4, I'd be really interested in getting that.
Good call, yeah, because it seems like, with Stafford, you always have a chance. And he's going to play until that final whistle, until the final play. Stafford's going to give it all he has. And with this Arizona Cardinals team, I feel like this is a chance for them to show and showcase really just their talent. And if they are the best team, JJ Watt has the quote out there. I forget the exact terminology, but basically it's like, don't underestimate us. We're here. We are who we are. And I think that Arizona, if you look at some of these, anytime touchdown scores, to me, this opens up the door for D-Hop. And if you guys have any questions about tonight's slate, whether it's player related, prop related, on the betting side as well, feel free to drop them in the comments. Ryan and I will get to them. But talk a little bit about DeAndre Hopkins, because to me, he came off the injury last week. And that was one of the players I was like, okay, let's see what he looks like. And he looks like the old D-Hop. He looks like he's back. They slowed him into it. But with Jalen Ramsey out, I feel like this opens the door.
Yeah, it definitely does open the door. And I let's pull up here just a single game. So single game, you're looking at 12-5 for DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, I could definitely get after that tonight. But then you're looking at, plus 115 for him to score an anytime touchdown. I mean, that kind of feels real juicy right now.
That's juicy, man.
Just when you're looking at the red zone. But I do have some concerns here just because this is one of those situations, Justin, where I look at it and I'm just like, okay, I was looking to fade DeAndre Hopkins before, and maybe not even so much for the Ramsey scenario, although that did come into play, but he's just not seeing the target share with Kyler Murray that we had seen in the past. I mean, we talk about all these quarterbacks who are not just going to hone in on their one guy just because he is the guy. Like Kyler is a share the wealth type of quarterback. Whoever's open, That's who he's getting the ball to. We've seen big games from Ertz, big games from Rondale, big games from Kirk and DeAndre as well too. And I know he is the catalyst, and that might help, boost his ownership percentage when we're looking at the single game slate. So True. I do want to find ways to kind of get separation from that ownership with DeAndre Hopkins there, maybe playing a Kyler captain and pairing him with two guys who don't get touchdowns. And then, hedge that by just taking a DeAndre Hopkins anytime touchdown and just hoping that at the captain spot or even in the flex, he doesn't do enough to burn you. But yes, I mean, in a vacuum, Justin, this obviously elevates him on paper. It's just a matter of how much and how bullish do you want to be on that tonight.
Yeah. And it feels like, Kyler got back to using his legs, but you're 100% right. And a lot of times Kyler is spreading it out. We've seen Zach Ertz have the monster game. We've seen D-Hop have the monster game. AJ Green, Rondale Moore early on in the season, Christian Kirk. And today it feels like perhaps, Jalen Ramsey's gone and maybe it didn't affect D-Hop. He's going to get his work. But Christian Kirk or AJ Green, one of those two might pop off, man. Who do you think is more likely? Because both of those numbers give us a chance to get a little bit of juice there. And they're sitting around the same levels. When you talk AJ Green, Christian Kirk in the red zone, anytime scores. Who do you like right now before we move over to the Rams side of the ball?
Yeah, I'm a Christian Kirk truther, man. I kind of have backed this guy for time and time again. AJ Green, he looked like he had lost a step in his last year with Cincinnati, and now, coming into Arizona, he has been rejuvenized quite a bit. But Christian Kirk, just because of the way that the focus now has to shift on DeAndre, and just when you're looking at the guys. Average depth of target, he's their deep ball receiver. I do like getting after him for an anytime touchdown in hopes that he can kind of break one. You're looking at his over receiving props here on the FanDuel Sportsbook at 45.5. I could probably get after that number as well too. But I mean, all these guys are really favorable. Maybe, except for Rondale Moore, I'm really not sure how to take Zach Ertz leans at this point. I'm going against him in a season long for full transparency to our FanDuel people. So if I'm not talking him up, that's just because I'm hoping for a down game. But he's definitely been involved since coming into the Cardinals there. But yeah, Christian Kirk is probably the guy that I think I see the most getting an option to, just because of the secondary have to focus on people outside of him.
Yeah, and they're missing a couple corners out there as well. And Ramsey kind of covers that slot X position right now. So it's, we'll see a little bit of an uptick, I think, from Zach Ertz, from Christian Kirk. That's a very good point. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in. Let's move to the Rams side of the ball. A couple question marks over there, obviously, with the injury to Tyler Higbee. We talked about Zach Ertz tight end. So let's kind of stay on the tight end topic. The injury, the COVID, actually being on the COVID list for Tyler Higbee is going to cause a little bit of some problems, I think, for this offense. Like you mentioned, some blocking in the run game, just availability in the passing game. What's your overall thought on who's the biggest beneficiary out of all of this? Obviously, OBJ, Odell Beckham, and Van Jefferson are there. Who do you think is the biggest beneficiary out of Tyler Higbee leaving?
Yeah, well, like I said, I think the huge or the huge whatever the pessimistic view here is that Sony Michel. I think I can kind of tread lightly with him with the injuries that they're going to be dealing with on the offensive line, and now Tyler Higbee being out. You're probably going to see. I think that I see people in the chat kind of talking about Blanton, the backup tight end, versus Bryson Hopkins. And I think that Blanton's already been named kind of the replacement guy, but Bryson Hopkins is kind of interesting because he's a guy who got drafted. He was looking like the kind of heir apparent, for lack of a better term, to Gerald Everett when he was still there. Kind of an explosive kid out of college as well too. So I could see him possibly getting in on pass catching downs, possibly, because I don't think they've used him in run blocking situations. So maybe Blanton,
Right.
even though being the starter, he might be used in more of a run blocking sense. And I'd be looking to get after Hopkins lines. I see him. Yeah, Bryson is 650 anytime touchdown to score tonight. Blanton's at 410. So that's an interesting one that I don't have a lean on. But you asked me about OBJ and Van Jefferson, Justin, and I think that both of these guys should see an uptick in targets just because of the share of volume of targets that Higbee had been seeing. I mean, this dude was not leaving the field to be able to be out there in line and out wide as well too from those sets. So I think both of their target shares should go up, and I'd definitely be looking to get after the receiving props there. I know that Van Jefferson hasn't gotten it going, Justin, but he has been a target for this team. I know, I'm not sure if you saw that video going around on Twitter with Sean McVay. They got him a touchdown, and Van Jefferson was just like thanking the coach for not giving up on me and getting me involved, and like they just love this kid, man. So I'm cool to get after any props from him.
It's funny because we thought we were getting just the only the Hopkins anytime TD for the Cardinals. I think that's kind of juicy there for the Rams as well, man. I love that point. And obviously with Darrell Henderson being out, the run game, we got to talk about it. Sony Michel came in and did work last week as well. And so when we're looking at, anytime scores, we're looking at player props. To me, I feel like the Rams know they have to run the ball in order to be effective, in order to get the most out of this passing attack, get the most out of Stafford. It has to be a balanced attack. And Sony Michel is going to have a factor. What are your thoughts on Sony Michel coming into this game? Because I feel like we could easily see a duplicate of what we saw last week from him.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at it, I mean, last week we love the Rams because they're lead back. They're just going to give work, and especially when there's nobody out there to kind of take anything away from them. So Henderson being out, I mean, that obviously ups Sony Michel, and I do like Sony Michel in the vacuum. I'm just trying to figure out ways to kind of put my rosters together because I can tell you this right now, Justin. Like, I probably won't make a team without Cooper Kupp on it, just because of the sheer volume and dominance that this guy sees. And when there's so many other plays, like again with Hopkins and the way that they're priced, I think you have to make a decision if you want to play the quarterbacks as well too. So I'm just gonna lock in Cooper Kupp and hope that pays off more often than not. But Sony Michel, yeah, you're loving that he got 24 carries last week, 120. Just absolutely a workhorse back, which is what we love, and him being priced at 12,000 even on the single game slate, you're definitely willing to go there. I just would tread lightly. If they get into the red zone, and this team is one of the most pass heavy teams when it comes to the red zone usage, so it's not a guarantee that he would score, and we're getting minus 120 on him to score an anytime touchdown at the FanDuel Sportsbook, which maybe I could see it happening, but it's just not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze for me when I'm talking about it, because you could be looking disappointed there especially if the Rams being on the road, if they're playing from behind, that could lead to more passing opportunities.
Absolutely. And, it's one of those things, at least with the Ram side of the ball, we know who's going to get the dominant share. We know Sony Michel is going to have a big impact. On the Cardinal side of the ball, there's been some questions, and even coming in through the chat, we're asking some questions. Is Edmonds playing? Is he out? If we've seen Edmonds is out. I thought he was supposed to be on track to play today. So obviously we'll get an official word as things comes in. But does that complicate things for you? Because obviously we saw Chase Edmonds at the beginning of the year have a super important role when it came to this attack, the passing attack as well. He's getting about 4 or 5 catches a game. We saw James Conner really take over that role once Chase Edmonds got hurt. Now he comes back. Let's pretend for all intents and purposes he comes back. is Edmonds a play right now, or is he the type of back you're like, you know what, let's see what kind of work they give him heading into the game as opposed to just throwing him into lineups?
Yeah, so I was just looking because I hadn't seen any official word yet, but it does look like a couple of minutes ago that Chase Edmonds has been ruled out just because he
Good
hasn't
to
been
know.
activated from the IR yet. So no chance of playing if he's not activated. So we don't necessarily have to worry about that. But I still was going to tread lightly with him just because he hasn't played in so many weeks that, it is kind of curious. But, on this island games, I was kind of hoping that we didn't have to touch on this, Justin, because you had, Dalvin Cook, and I'm not going to put Chase Edmonds in these same categories here,
Right.
but Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara both came back this week and absolutely smashed in the opportunities that they were getting.
Strong.
So you knew that there was probably going to be some people that were going to look at that and wanting to not miss out on that ability. We don't have to worry about that. It is going to be the James Conner show. And that I'm fine getting behind James Conner, for a little bit. I've been fading this guy, on main slates, single game slates, what have you, just because he had looked like he had lost a step, so much last year in 2020. It just wasn't working out for him. But, refound hope, newfound hope with the new team here in Arizona has
Right.
kind of gotten him going, and just having that backfield to himself. We see the stud that he was kind of turning out to be when he was healthy in Pittsburgh, replacing Le'Veon Bell there. So, shout out to James Conner. Definitely a great story, feel good story. And you're looking at him, 135 to score an anytime touchdown on the FanDuel Sportsbook, as it should be, because this dude is just getting so many carries when they get into the red zone as of late.
Absolutely crushing it. Absolutely crushing it. And he's one of those players who has the touchdown upside too. You love to see it. One of the league leaders in touchdowns this year. And when, the Cardinals obviously mentioned game scripting with the injuries to the Rams, it looks like it could be one of those situations where the Cardinals may get into that positive game script, need to run the football a little bit more. And so we'll lean on James Conner. Is there anybody outside of the quarterbacks? Obviously, we haven't really touched on Kyler Murray, Matt Stafford. Is anybody we've talked about so far that you're interested in putting in your MVP spot outside of the quarterbacks? Because we do have a star-studded quarterback matchup heading into the night.
Yeah, like I said, I talked about Cooper Kupp and absolutely loving him. He's the first person I put into my MVP spot. And, the best thing for people who are joining us, on Facebook and on YouTube, Twitch, I appreciate you guys rocking along with me and Justin. If you guys aren't playing on the FanDuel single game slate, it is nice because the prices don't change whether you put somebody in your MVP or flex. So really, when you're looking at Cooper Kupp being 15,000, and yes, he is the third highest price, but, 2,000 difference on Kyler Murray, 500 difference in Matthew Stafford, which does make it a little bit interesting to have some Stafford MVP lines. But I do like Cooper Kupp. But I do also think, there is some merit here where everybody looks at the first, the top plays and putting them at the MVP slot because of what I just talked about, the price
Right.
not changing. So taking some of these lower end guys like a Sony Michel captain spot kind of makes some sense. If the Rams are kind of, getting one over on the Arizona and they're able to play with the lead, we can expect that Sony Michel could possibly be involved there. Or maybe the defense creates some, gets wrecked havoc and creates some short yard fields. I like that. And the other one I do like is OBJ. I think that OBJ is going to be so forgotten about. You're looking at his price coming in at 10,000 on the FanDuel single game slate. I couldn't actually believe it because he's priced at the same realm as Colt McCoy, who's
Wow,
the
yeah.
backup quarterback there. And,
Right.
only 5 targets last week against Jacksonville, but did get 10 against Green Bay in that game when he caught that his first touchdown of the season. I think that this is an interesting, more games go on, the more that OBJ is becoming a part of this team, a part of this offense. So I do
100%.
like getting on the wide receiver 2s and wide receiver 3s at the MVP spot, just because they tend to be lower owned, or go at the ownership that, might too many people might not be thinking about.
100%, man. Agree on that. And it's tough because there's so many, in some of the games, there's obviously lesser receiving options or lesser running back options. You kind of know who to stack. But in this one, there's so many threats to score at any point, so many threats for big games. We're even getting questions tonight about Andy Isabella coming in.
Mhm.
Some of the questions are saying, add Andy Isabella tonight, into your lineup. So for me, I'm looking at it. There's so many options on this Cardinals team. you know, talk about it, Ryan, because we've seen OBJ have a factor on the Ram side of the ball. Van Jefferson, obviously with Higbee out, there's others, and then on the Cardinal side of the ball, we got AJ Green, Rondale Moore, Christian Kirk, D Hop. Is Isabella an actual play tonight? Is he just one of those under the radar plays that can go in and boom for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, if his booms are gonna be booms, because
Right.
this guy comes in and we've seen it in the past, limited work, but he always comes in and it's big playability, So he could be one of those plays, he's only 5,000 on the single game slate where he could kind of, dictate it. And I know that people, want to get after a play like that because it lets you jam in the
Yes.
top guys, which is where, we always can get behind jam it, team jam it in. But he's been a healthy scratch the past couple of times. So he's one of those guys where you do have to monitor his status because just last Sunday, he was not activated and playing. So we know that the Arizona Cardinals, they do have 4 guys ahead of them that are all viable to play. And especially with Zach Ertz being back, this is not a team that's, really going to go 4 wide, 5 wide all that often. So,
Right.
that would allow him to get that work. So, I think it's kind of a little bit of a thin play, but if you need, some salary relief and he is active, then I could see people getting behind it.
Yeah, those floors. Sometimes the floor will kill you in those lineups, man. So you want to make sure you have some type of floor. And one of the questions coming in, obviously, we want you guys to get your lineups in and make the best decisions. Make sure you head over to FanDuel, get your lineups in now. Make sure you're prepared so that way when the start of the game happens, you're ready to rock and roll with us. Let's talk a little bit about some boosts, though, because one of the questions that's come in is about FanDuel Boost for tonight. It says, do we like any of the FanDuel Boosts for tonight? And I want to take a look at some of them because they're really interesting to me. Obviously with the running attack for both teams being a little bit injured, and then obviously with the mobility of K1, Kyler Murray, we know there's a threat there for a rushing score on his side.
Yep.
How are you feeling about some of these odds boosts? Because I really, really like that Rams and Cardinals each to score 1 rushing TD, 1 passing TD boost, man.
Yeah, no, I think that one's interesting too. You're looking at 180 on those odds. But Justin, we also got Cooper Kupp and Hopkins scoring a touchdown at plus 500, 5-1 odds. Shout out to Kyle R with that question, who is asking about the boost, because Kyle R, he's been rocking with us all year, and he knows I love to get after these boosts on FanDuel. And that at 5-1 odds, I think you can max value on the boost is $50. So if you put 50 on that, you're getting a hefty payout there at 250. Not so bad at all. 5-1 odds. So I absolutely love that. And like I said, Justin, if I'm playing my single game slate's a little bit different. I love taking sides on the FanDuel Sportsbook just to hedge. And that's a great way for me to hedge in this game if I'm not going to have as much exposure to DeAndre Hopkins as the field is. But let me get that touchdown equity at 5-1.
That's TD equity, man. And I love it. D-Hop is obviously the guy in the red zone for the Cardinals. We know Cooper Kupp is the man just overall for the Los Angeles Rams. And so, yeah, definitely getting the odds on those is something that you want to do. Interesting same game parlays. Let's take a look at some of the same game slate, because to me, stacking a little bit in this one is going to be a really good option, especially on the Rams side of the ball. I feel like there's some options. There's probably going to be some sneaky value there with Hopkins taking over. Obviously, Tyler Higbee is going to be out if you're just joining us right now. Tyler Higbee is going to be out. Jalen Ramsey is going to be out. Both of them out with COVID-related illnesses this week in testing. So we're going to take a look at some of these same gamers. And let's start with the rushing. And so for the rushing same game, let's take a look at him. Kyler Murray to me seems like one of the ones that I'm looking at the most. Obviously, the Jalen Ramsey, him being out of this game, to me opens up the door for K1 to get loose. I'm looking at him as, hey, they're not going to be bringing him off the corner. They're not going to be bringing Ramsey in from that slot. Do you feel the same way about that, or are you thinking the opposite?
No, I absolutely love getting props on K1 tonight, because you're talking about it, Justin. Like, you're looking at his rushing yards at over 27.5. I mean, this team with missing Jalen in the secondary, I think they could try and get some pressure on him just
Right.
to hopefully not give him time to be able to, kind of carve them up, but that could lead to him scrambling out. We just saw him visiting here, or I just saw him live in person visiting here in Chicago, getting loose on 10 rushes for 50 yards and 2 scores rushing. It felt like he hadn't missed a beat since coming back. And even that Green Bay game that he saw before, you're looking at back in October, it was kind of not at that same realm before. We had
Yep.
seen him kind of a little bit banged up, but now that he's healthy, maybe we can look at him getting loose a little bit against this team. So love getting that prop there of over 27.5 for any single game parlay that people would be making.
Yeah, and it seemed like the ankle looked healthy. He was flying around and he could get that on one
Yeah.
run. So to me, that I love seeing that out of Kyler Murray. And the other two look on par. I don't really have too strong a lean on one or the other. I think with James Conner being the lead back, the lead dog, Chase Edmonds being announced out, that also looks like a lock. So I guess we can move up to some of the passing numbers, some of the passing yardage. And to me, with Tyler Higbee being out, obviously we talked about Hopkins. He's not even listed on here for the receiving yards. Is there anybody else you like from that Rams side of the football? Van Jefferson to me kind of sticks out as somebody I like to touch his over now.
Yeah, Van Jefferson's interesting. I'd probably lean a little bit more on Odell just because the number isn't where I feel like it should be. 45.5. I think that, I get it. Like Van Jefferson is kind of the deep target that they go after. So I get where his receiving prop has come in, and he's hit this line, before Odell has come into the mix. But if things aren't going his way, I could see him not hitting that more often than not. And Odell's been, kind of taking over what the Robert Woods role was. So if they're doing two wide receiver sets, expect him to be on the field other than Van, and they'll probably rotate in. But 45.5 just kind of feels low for him. So I'd definitely get after that number. I mean, Cooper Kupp's number is absolutely insane when you think about it, of 98.5, but he's been hitting this. So I definitely think that there's merit for it to be where it should be. But you're looking at almost even money for Odell at number at the juice only at 105.
Right.
That's pretty nice getting after that.
I'll agree 100%. I love the Odell number. I think both of those numbers, Odell, Van Jefferson, and you mentioned it, just him playing that Robert Woods role. There's always obviously a floor there, but with the way Odell gets open, the way he's kind of been acclimated to this offense, I 100% am on board with that over. Another one that looks kind of tasty, and you talked about it, Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk being up there, to me, that seems a little low for somebody. Obviously, Jalen Ramsey news changes a little bit for me. 45.5 there. What are you thinking, Ryan? You like that one?
Which one? I'm sorry.
The 45.5 for Christian Kirk receiving yard prop. You touched on it earlier, man. It feels like it's a prime spot for him.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that, just because of the way that the secondary is looking up, I think that Kirk can get behind after these guys there. And 45.5, same type of juice at 105 that Odell's getting. I think that those would be two bets that I would take, with Kyler, with DeAndre Hopkins getting an anytime touchdown there to kind of make a nice little parlay that you feel really good about.
One guy we haven't really touched on and has had a role in this offense, we kind of talked about his last year in Cincinnati being a little bit, of a fade, and that's AJ Green. And obviously, he doesn't have what we're thinking as far as a consistent role, but he does have that opportunity to anytime score. I want to go to touchdowns actually before we go. Anytime touchdown for 2 touchdowns, right? Who's the first to score 2 touchdowns? You think anybody in this game is capable of scoring 2 touchdowns? Outside of our guy, Cooper Kupp, is anybody else capable?
Yeah, I mean, James Conner is capable, and you see him with the shortest odds there at 440. I mean, that makes a ton of sense because of what his red zone role is. But I do think that, there is some merit to taking Kyler at 17-1, 17 plus 1,700. The guy just did it last week on the road. Now he's at home, in the dome. We know that, the quarterback's rushing in the dome, a little bit more favorable there. And I could see some merit in taking him there at 17-1. That's nice.
Love it. Gotta love it. And we appreciate all you guys for rocking with us, asking your questions. This should be a really exciting Monday night slate. One of the comments that just came in and said Ertz 2 TDs. And I absolutely love that potential because Ertz is a big red zone guy for this Cardinals team, man. So shout out to Grim Fan. Appreciate you tuning in and appreciate everybody else who's been rocking with Ryan and I on this Monday Night Football preview. Make sure you guys get your lineups in with FanDuel. Follow on all social media accounts. Subscribe to the YouTube. And Ryan, my man, I will see you again very soon.
Always pleasure, Justin. We'll see you next time, man.
Yes, sir.